Hey everyone, this is going to be a tutorial on how to turn in your homework assignments via GitHub Classroom. So I'm going to be going over basically the entirety of this first assignment. I'll just walk you through the whole thing. So if you just follow along, you'll be able to turn everything that you need to in. So the thing that you need to understand about this class with all of the assignments is that it's a little bit different. You're not going to be turning in anything through Learning Suite. Instead, when you come to Learning Suite, there's going to be links posted that will take you to a thing called GitHub Classroom. So the basic structure of how this is going to work is represented in this diagram. So I have instructions on the assignments that you'll need to do that are stored on GitHub. And what you're going to do is you're going to clone those instructions from the internet down to your own computer. You're going to write your code, and then you're going to commit your code, which is like saving it essentially. And then you're going to push it back up to GitHub. So you just have to push it back up to GitHub, and once it's there, the professor, can see it, and so can the TAs, and then that's how you're going to get your assignments graded. So it's essentially just get it down from the internet, write it, and then you just have to push it back up there. So you'll just have to click on the link that's included in here. I'll post that after I record this video. But what that link is going to do, it's going to take you to here on GitHub Classroom. So this is assuming also that you have created a GitHub account. So if you haven't, make sure you've done that. And when you do this, what you need to do is find your net ID so that you can associate your GitHub account with your specific net ID. So here I just have a fake student net ID Nefits. So I'm just going to click that. And then once I do that, it's going to say, hey, do you want to accept this assignment? So this is the assignment that we want to do, this first one. If you click accept this assignment, and it's going to take a second to load, and what it's doing is it's creating your very own repository under your account on GitHub. So it says you've accepted the assignment, your assignment repository has been created, so you have your very own new repository on GitHub. So if we just click this link, it'll take us to it. And you can see that it has the name of the assignment right up here, and then it will have your GitHub username right afterwards. In this case, it's Mr. Nefits. So if you want, you can scroll through, and you can see there's a few different folders and files in here. We'll talk about all of these, and you'll notice at the bottom here there are some instructions. So these are the instructions for your assignment, but rather than read them on here, I'm going to show you how you can clone this repository onto your computer, and then how you can work through the assignment, run some automated tests, and then turn that code in. So if you click this code button right here, and if you just click open with GitHub Desktop, assuming you have GitHub Desktop installed, make sure that you click open if you haven't checked this yet, and that should launch GitHub Classroom. There you go. GitHub Desktop. So this is just a link to the online repository. You are going to want to choose a place on your computer where you want this to live. I have in my documents folder, I just created a fall 2025 IS303 since that's when I'm recording this video. So if I put it inside of there, it's just saying, hey, you want to copy this from the internet and you want to put it into that location on your computer. So I'm going to click clone. And it's going to clone that down there. And you might get this pop-up. This actually doesn't matter that much. No matter which one you click, it's not going to matter. I've been doing this multiple times, so you shouldn't get this. But if you do, just click close. It shouldn't matter. It's better if you just say for my own purposes. This is because what you're cloning, there's a version I created, and then there's your own specific version. So just say for my own purposes, which points to the specific version that's on your GitHub account. It's just cleaner if you do that. But if you click the wrong one, it really doesn't matter. Then click continue. And now you have your repository open here in GitHub Desktop. So you can see, you could see where those files are downloaded on your computer. If you click this middle button here, it'll say show in Finder if you're on a Mac, but it means the same thing. So you can see we've downloaded the files from GitHub onto our own computer, but what we want to do is open them up in Visual Studio Code. So let's just click that. And it should open up a new window, and then you have it ready to go already here in Visual Studio Code. For this recording, I'm going to hold the Control key on my keyboard and then push plus just to make this screen a little bit bigger so it's easier to see. If you're on Mac, just hold the Command key and push plus. If you make it too big, then just hold Control or Command and push the minus key. That'll make it smaller. So just make it whatever size is comfortable for you will work. So maybe we'll do it one bigger. You're going to see there's a lot of things here that might freak you out initially. I'm going to go through what each one of these mean. Really, the things you need to just care about are this Python file, and then the instructions, and then like this rubric if you want to reference it. So first off, let's actually just start by clicking into this README file. So I'm going to click into there. And these are the instructions for your assignment. And you can just click here and read this, but this is a little bit hard to read. If you've ever worked with like HTML, for example, you know that you can write things out in HTML, but it looks a lot uglier until you view it in a web browser. Then it looks nicely formatted. This is the same with this .md file. It stands for Markdown. So if you right-click this and select View Preview, then it converts some of this stuff like these hashtags into different headings, so it's a lot easier to read. So I'm going to right-click this, which is usually like a two-finger click if you're on a laptop, and then just go to where it says Open Preview. Then it's going to open the exact same file, but it's just a lot easier to read. I really recommend you just do it this way. So this will always have the instructions for what you need to do in the assignment. I'm going to walk you through everything for this assignment right here. But just really quick, just before we do that, just to satisfy any curiosity you might have, let's walk through what these other things are. This .github just has some settings for things to work when you upload it to GitHub. Just don't touch it. You can look inside there if you want, but please don't touch it or you might mess some stuff up actually when it gets uploaded. Descriptions of test cases, I'll get to this when we talk about running the automated tests that are included. The idea is that when you write your assignment, you can run the tests and instantly see what grade you're going to get, and then you can fix it and keep doing it until you get a 100% if you want. Tests, these are the automated tests they're going to run. I also don't touch anything in here. If you're curious, you can open any one of these up, but you don't need to touch anything there. This .gitignore file is just, it's telling Git certain files that it shouldn't upload to GitHub when you push your changes back up. This is another one that you can look at, but you don't need to do anything with this. This other one that you don't have to touch or anything is just this pytest.ini. I don't know how you pronounce that, probably ini. These are just settings to make the tests when they run show up a little bit nicer. So it just most of this is just settings. You don't have to worry about it. What you should do though is open up this Python file because this is where you need to actually write your code. So you have this Python file, but you also probably want to look at your instructions while you're writing it. So VS Code has this nice little feature where if you just click and drag this and then drag it all the way to the right, you'll start to see it highlight just this right side. If you let go of the mouse, then it has a split screen. So you can see the instructions and scroll through them and then write your code over here. Then also if you want to hide this pane, you can also click right there as well. Then you get more room just to see what you're doing. So let's actually just read through the instructions here. The point of this assignment is just to practice uploading to GitHub, so this isn't too complicated itself. But usually when you do your assignments, I'd like you to include your name, Stefan, and then just a little description. This is just good practice because for real code you might write, it's really easy to forget what the actual purpose of what you're writing was. So let's just say this is inputting a number and dividing it by 2. You don't know that yet, but that's what the instructions are saying. So this just says write your code below these comments. You can test your code afterwards, and you can delete these comments after reading them. I'm actually just going to delete them right now, and let's just go ahead and write our code. So this says, using the input function, ask the user, please enter a whole number. So I'm just going to say, let's get a number. Let's use the input function. And what I recommend doing with these instructions is anytime I tell you to print out anything or ask for a function, just highlight it here and copy it and then just paste it over here. That way you don't make any spelling mistakes. I think that'll just make things a lot easier. So we're storing the number in a variable. Okay, we can convert the number to an int. You could do this on the same line or on a different one. I'll just do it on a different one. Let me call this num int equals. Let's convert it into an integer because this always gives us a string. So by doing int num, that will make it an actual number that we can do math on. Okay, then let's say new number. We want to divide this by 2 and store the result. So let's do num int divided by 2. Okay, and then we want to print out this message. So number from input divided by 2 is new number. Okay. So to print, we just do that. I pasted that. So number from input, we can just say that is num int, and let's make sure we put an f at the beginning. That way we can format this string to include these variables. And I'm just going to put the new number here. New number. Awesome. So assuming you've installed the Python extension and everything, you should be able to press this little play button to run your code. So let's say I enter 10, sort of like this example that it gives. So if I enter 10, then it should display 5. And since it's a float, it'll display as 5.0. So let's say I enter a number 10, I push enter or return. 10 divided by 2 is 5.0. So this is looking good. Be sure to include comments in your code. Be sure to run the test in the testing tab to see what score you're going to get. So this is the whole assignment in this case. If we scroll down in the instructions, let me actually pull this down so we can see more. So see rubric.md for details on each of the tests you're scored on. Okay, so if we click over here again to this Explorer, we can see this rubric MD. Let me just open this up in a preview. Okay, so we could close the instructions to see a bigger version of this or just leave it like that. So this is saying essentially what your assignment is going to get graded on. One, it's saying there's this input prompts test. So your input prompts must be the same as the expected input prompts. And it's saying it's using these test cases. Let me talk about what those mean. And it's saying that you can look at those in this descriptions of test cases right here. Then it's saying, okay, are the printed messages, do they match what's expected? That's worth 60 points. And then your code must include at least 3 comments. You can use any form of commenting. That's worth 10 points. So it's all for a total of 100 points. So each of those tests, or at least the tests that indicate it, are going to be using different test cases, like using 10 as an input, using 0 as an input. So let me show you like this very first input test case to let you understand what's going on when we actually run these tests. Basically, so if I were to open up this test case, the way that the automated grading works is that it's going to run your code with a specific input, in this case 10, and then it's going to expect a specific output. It's going to expect that you're asking for this input and that it's going to display this printed message here. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. So if you instead displayed something like 10 divided by 2 is 3, like you would fail that test for this input case, or for this test case. So let's actually just run through that and see what that looks like. If we look back at the rubric too, because I just noticed I missed something in my code. One of the tests is for sufficient comments, your code must include at least 3 comments. So if I look at my code, I have 2 comments here up top, and then I don't have any others. So I should actually fail this test. But let's run it and actually see what that looks like. So as soon as you have a Python file open, if you just come over here to this testing tab that looks like a beaker, if you click right there, you're going to see the screen and it's going to say, hey, configure the Python test so we can actually run it and see what score we're going to get. you need to click Configure Python Tests. It's going to give you a test in what the Python tests are written in. It's going to give you a choice between two. These are written in PyTest, so you can either use your arrow keys or just click where it says PyTest. And then you might remember at the beginning where I said all the automated tests are in that tests folder. So you should choose tests right here. So once you do that, then you might actually notice here at the bottom of the screen, as soon as I chose that, it's actually installing PyTest. So this is just some code that makes it so we can run tests on the code that you've written. The very first time that you do this, it's going to have to install PyTest. But after that, every other assignment you do in the future, it doesn't have to install it. But this first time, it's going to say, hey, there's a discovery error, and that's because it wasn't installed. But if you click this little refresh button right here, just click that, then it should work just fine. You can click these little arrows if you want to see the individual tests that are going to run. So if you want, you can push a little play button to run one test at a time. Or if you just click this button right up here at the top, it's going to run all of them. I recommend you just do that. So let's run this and see what happens. So just give it a few seconds to run through. So that's good. That means we passed this first test. We passed the second test, but we did not pass the third one. So you can see a little, if you scroll through this screen that pops up in test results, it'll tell you, okay, we passed the first couple ones. It looks like we did not pass the third one, and it's going to say open test results summary.markdown for full details. So we failed one, we got 2 of them we passed though, so better than nothing. And you'll notice that once you run your tests, if you go back to the File Explorer, you have this new file right here called Test Results Summary. So I'm just going to right-click this and open the preview, and this is going to tell you what score you got, as well as give you some messages on how to fix any errors that you got. So I'm just going to close this so we can see this a little bit bigger. So we can see that we got all 30 points for the first test, all 60 for the second one, but we didn't get the sufficient comments one passed, so we got a 90 out of 100. So it's saying, okay, for this test, you can click right here to see details for why we failed. So if you click here, this is the error message. Not enough comments found. You need at least 3, only 2 comments detected. So that makes sense. If we go back to our code, we only have 2. So let me just add a comment. This is converting the string number to an integer number. So let me do that. Then if I were to come back to my testing tab, I could actually just run this individual test by itself. And that's totally fine to do if you want to see if you passed it, and now we do pass it. Just notice that if you do that, your test results summary is only going to show that single test. If you run all of them all at once though, you just have to wait a little bit for it to finish going. Then it's going to recreate this at the end and it'll show you the actual score that you got. So you got a 100 out of 100. So that's great. So once you do that, you can be confident this is the score you're going to get as long as you actually upload your code back to GitHub. Let me just show you what it looks like if you fail some of the other tests, because that's likely as you go through this test, you're going to fail a few at the beginning. Like let's say you made some kind of logical error in your code. Let's say instead of dividing by 3, instead of dividing by 2, you divided by 3. So that means everything that it's expecting you to print out, like 10 divided by 2 is 5, it's going to be the wrong number that's printing out, right? So let's actually do this and look at what this looks like. Let me just run through my tests again. Give it a second. So that one's still passed because the input is still correct. But the printed message is, it's telling us, okay, we failed that. Open the test summary. So let me go back into here so we can look at what happened here. So printed messages, oh, looks like we somehow passed one of them. Okay, let's do, oh, it's because one of them was using 0. So 0 divided by 3 will still be 0. That makes sense. So let's just go to this first one. So in these 3 test cases, we didn't pass. So let's see. It's saying the expected printed message, 10 divided by 2 is 5, wasn't printed in your code. Well, how can you fix it? Well, you might have made a spelling error, you might have forgot to print it out, or the logic in your code made the correct message not appear. And in this case, it's this. I tried to give you a hint if you might have made a spelling mistake, so I show you what's expected and something that's close to what you printed out. So you can see, oh, there's a difference right here. This is what we printed out in our actual code. We got 3.33, okay? And then just in general, this is the workflow that you should do to try and fix an error like this. If you're having trouble fixing it, what you should do is input this and then try and make it's expecting it to look like this. So I would recommend actually just putting this over here. I hope it closed out when I did that. We can just scroll back here. And if you can't figure it out, just try and run your code using the exact inputs here. So this is obviously a pretty simple example because we're literally just asking for one number, and then let me exit out of here and then rerun it. We're just asking for one number. So if I were to enter 10, I can see that my code looks like this. Okay, that does not look like the expected one. So then I'd have to go through my code and be like, oh, you know what, I made a mistake here. So as soon as I fix that, then if I run the tests again, it would be fixed, etc. Other errors you might run into though, let's say you make a spelling mistake. Okay, so I fixed it, now I'm getting 100 out of 100. I tried to be very lenient. And like, let's say you do some extra spaces or capitalize differently, it should still pass the tests. Because I don't want it to mark you down when it's something dumb like capitalization. So that should still give you full credit. But if you make a spelling mistake, it will mark that down. So let's say instead of enter, you did enters like with a Z for some reason. Let's run that test. Let me just do this one so it's quicker. Okay, so it's saying we failed on all of those test cases. So let's actually just look at what that is even telling us. Let's just go to this first one again. So the expected input prompt, please enter a whole number, wasn't found. And in this case, it's because we made a spelling error. So again, if you look here for possible spelling mistakes, I try and help you point out where that might be. So the expected line is please enter a whole number. Yours is please enters, and then it shows a little plus. That means there's a added difference between the two. So hopefully that helps you find the mistake quicker so you don't waste a bunch of time trying to fix it. So then if we run these again, just this last time, we can see, hopefully, that it passes all the tests. So sweet. So the only thing left now, once you've done this, and hopefully you now understand how the automated tests work, and you can see that you can check what you get from this test results summary, is if you go back here to GitHub Desktop, what you're going to notice is under this Changes tab over here, you can see the Python file that you edited. And what you see over here is that it's in green, it's showing all the lines that you changed or added. Any red ones are ones that you got rid of. For example, I got rid of all that, the comments here. I changed my comments here, so that's showing up in red. But my code that I actually added is now right here. So what you need to do is click this button that says commit one file to main. When you do that, you're essentially creating a saved state of your repository on your computer. The key thing is that it's only saved to your computer right now. In fact, if you click history, you can actually see the changes that you've made. And the really cool thing about Git is that it can store everything as it goes along. In fact, just to show you how that works, let's say that afterwards I wanted to add a new comment. Print out the final result. And then I save that. So I saved that just by Control S, or you can always go to File, Save, or Save All. That's always a good thing to do. Then if I go back to GitHub Desktop, I can actually see under the Changes tab, oh, I changed line 7 of my code. It knows, hey, I added this extra comment. So I can commit here. I can also add a little description of what I did. I made another comment. You can also change it up here if you want to. I made a new comment. This is like the short comments. This is the more detailed comment if you want to. Then just click commit one file to main. And you'll see in your history is that you can actually see the history of how your code has changed through time. The reason why this is useful in the real world, we're not going to do a lot of this in this class, but let's say you accidentally change your code and it messes everything up, you introduce a bug, then you can just go back to the previous version and just say, hey, I want to reset it to this commit. That's something, again, you don't really need to worry about in this class. Mostly, if you remember, we're just using Git and GitHub to clone it to our computer, write it, and then push it back up to turn it in. But if you're curious why people love Git and GitHub so much, this is the big reason why, is you can track the changes through your code throughout time. But with that, we have made our changes. There's no more changes left. And once you've done that, you should see this message right here that says push commits to the origin remote. So remote just means the repository on the internet on GitHub. So you have 2 local commits waiting to be pushed to GitHub. So I've made 2 commits here on my computer, but I need to push them up to GitHub. This is how you turn in your assignment. So if you just push that little button right there, there you go. You just turned it in. You don't have to do anything else. You don't have to turn anything in on Learning Suite. Your code is good to go. If you want to double check if it got turned in correctly on GitHub, you can always click this button right here, which will open your repository on GitHub. And we can see, actually, remember that comment I made? I made a new comment. You can actually see your whatever you commented when you made the commit there. And 1 minute ago, I uploaded this. If I were to click on it, I can actually see, oh, hey, this is the changes that you made. So pretty cool. So from here, your code will get it automatically runs your code again once you turn it in here, and that's how we get your final grade. It automatically will send it to a spreadsheet that I and the TAs have access to. The other nice thing that you should be aware of too is that for me and the TAs, when you turn it in, let me refresh this. On our end, it looks like this. So I can see, like if I'm a teacher looking at this, I can look at your code, and I can see if you made any mistakes. Let's say you're working on an assignment and it takes you a little longer to go through it. You can't get it to work. You can actually push up your code here, and then I can look at it, and I can even leave comments on it as well. Like for example, if I ever wanted to, I could say, you could actually combine lines 4 and 5 and do num equals int input. Just copy this. This is another way you could write the code. It doesn't really matter because it works either way. But let's just say I wanted to write a comment for you, or the TAs wanted to do that. I could give you a comment, and then it will actually email you and tell you, hey, your teacher or TA left a comment for you. And you, on your repository, can see those comments if you come over to pull requests into feedback. And you can actually see the comment that I left you. So we won't always do this, but occasionally the TAs might go through and give you a recommendation on how you might improve your code. That again, like I say, we won't always do that, but every now and then that might be something that's something we like to do. So hopefully that gives you a good overview of that. Just remember that you accept this assignment from a link on Learning Suite. Once you accept the assignment, you're going to get your own version of the repository, open it up in GitHub Desktop, write it all in VS Code, make sure you pass all the tests, and then once you pass the test, just use GitHub Desktop to push it back up to GitHub. And once you do that, you've turned it in. You don't have to do anything else. I know this is a lot of different programs and technologies you're using just to turn an assignment in. I think this is worth it though, because one, you get instant feedback on your assignments, which I hope really helps you improve right in the moment. And Git and GitHub are tools that professional developers use every day. So getting exposure to it right from the beginning, I think in the long run, is going to be really helpful for you. So please let me or the TAs know if you have any questions at all. I'm sure some of you might have some problems getting this to work exactly. No problem at all. Just please come up and talk to me in office hours or before or after class, and I'll try and get you up to speed on everything. So thank you. I hope that's been helpful to you. So we'll see ya.